Actually, you know what? Before we get into any more of this, there's one thing I wanted to talk about. Little bit, very, very tiny bit of additional news on Bandai Namco and Koei Tecmo's collaboration coming out in less than 10 days, Ultra Kaiju Monster Rancher. We were kind of confused because we hadn't heard anything from Bandai Namco, who is, doing most of the socials for this game at this point. It seemed really strange, and they were just like, completely in the dark. So we thought maybe the Western release had been pushed back, and we were all panicking. We were all trying to figure out how to buy the Southeast Asian copy of the game. And it sucks because if you live in the Western Hemisphere, there are a lot of other regions that you can actually go on the Nintendo Switch eShop and buy games from. Like, you can buy games from China, you can buy games from Japan, as long as you have like that proper currency. You can't use like a Canadian or an American credit card, but as long as you have some sort of Japanese Nintendo points or whatever, you can make that work. Southeast Asia, so like Singapore, Indonesia, the Philippines, Malaysia, all of those countries, you're completely locked out in the Western Hemisphere from being able to access the eShop. It was going to be very, very difficult to buy this game if they did not actually release it in the West. And so we were stressed out about it, and we're like, well, we're diehards, we'll figure it out, but this is going to really hurt for engagement and like getting more people into the game. So it was kind of a stressful time. Then immediately after we were all opining about that, they dropped it, and they're like, hey, guess what? Game's coming out in the West. And we're like, okay, thank God, thank Christ. But what took them so long is a thing that I had actually assumed. Me and some other people and I had been talking about this as a possibility of the musical database they have coming into some weird issues with copyright. And people love to pretend that they are experts on copyright, and they're not, and I'm not. My wife works closely in that field, and it's amazing. She'll just say things, and I'm like, oh, I actually don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. I thought I knew what I was talking about, but turns out I don't. Turns out I have no fucking clue. And I still know better. I learned some of this stuff through osmosis than like 90% of people out there. If you see anybody on Twitter who is not like a copyright lawyer talking about copyright, there's a great chance, like I would put money on it 10 to 1, that they are wrong. They don't know what the fuck they're talking about. And sometimes that's me as well. I keep seeing all these things about how you can't copyright an artist's name or whatever for inclusion. But you absolutely can. Michael Jackson doesn't want his music in Monster Rancher, or he doesn't want reference to his music in Monster Rancher. That's totally within his estate's rights. It doesn't need to be like, oh, they didn't play Thriller. They only have the word Thriller in Michael Jackson. Okay, that's still a reference to his work. It gets muddy. They could probably sue if they wanted. And I think that's what happened here, is they had to remove the musical database because there was weird copyright issues. Or their lawyers were just like, you know what, we're just not going to deal with this. Maybe there won't be issues, but better safe than sorry. So they have a completely different version of the game, or same version of the game, but uses a different database. There's no CDs to look up in the Western release, which kind of sucks. I think I speak for everyone when I say, even though you don't get to put the physical disc into the game anymore, there's something nice about being able to search up your favorite CD, right? You still have like a sentimental attachment to it, even if you're not putting the physical disc in. I think it's a pretty elegant solution, the way they did it in DX. But for this, for Ultra Kaiju Monster Rancher, I'm sure there's going to be people in the comments complaining about how this is like worse than what Hitler did, but they are going back to the Monster Rancher Advance version of monster creation, which is you put in keywords, how they're going to be locked, if they're going to be locked to number of letters like they were in Monster Rancher Advance, we'll find out. But, that's what they're doing. There's no musical database. You instead have keywords. You have 2 sets of keywords. So let's watch this, and, if you got questions, I'll answer them. Choose which keywords to use for generation. So you have main and sub keywords. I don't know what that means. I don't know how that's going to, play out in the grand scheme of things. I have a feeling it's set up this way just because they had artist and title already set up, and it was probably easier for them to just repurpose it as 2 fields instead of reprogramming it for 1. I'm not a game dev, but my assumption is it was probably easier to do that than it was to redo everything. You can literally enter any word to get a monster. Can't do that with the CD database. Sure, but you don't have a physical attachment or a emotional attachment to a word, right? For the most part. Also, Michaelis, this is such a cool monster. I love that dude. So very, very simple. This is it. Releasing on October 20th. From October 20th to October 27th, every single day. It's not like a Monday to Sunday week. It's like a Thursday to Wednesday or something like that. But I'm going to be streaming every single day from the 20th to the 27th. Not necessarily extremely long every day. I have to work a couple of those days. So, I'll be streaming earlier in the day during the days I have to work. On the 27th is going to be my big annual marathon stream where I try to beat Monster Rancher 2 blindfolded. So that's going to be the only day of that we are not actually playing Ultra Kaiju Monster Rancher. And on the 25th, I'm taking part in a charity event, and we will be streaming for quite a while on the 25th. I'll have more info on that. But we got some like fun activities and stuff planned for that. We'll be playing a lot of Ultra Kaiju that day. Also, completely accidental that my new stream layout matches the colors for this like perfectly. Did not mean to do that. It was not done on purpose. This was built when Line was announced. It was not built when Kaiju was announced. So all of my color schemes and shit are going to work very well with Ultra Kaiju completely on accident. So I'm pretty happy about that as well. I low-key look sponsored. I do. It looks like I got those access codes. Bandai Namco has not reached out to me. Koei Tecmo follows me on Twitter. Bandai Namco does not. Let me talk to Harada, see if I can pull some strings.